This past week, I have been absolutely bombarded with requests about the Vayla. Who are they? Are they important? And do I have a theory? Well, I'm not sure if I can call it a theory, but I have made quite a few connections that I want to share with you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. To start off, I wanted to mention a theory that was made by Star Stable Adventures, which I will link down below for you to check out. At one point, they said how the Druid statues might represent the Vayla, and this instantly clicked with me when it was mentioned. I mean, of course there would be statues of these ancient witches, and that would explain the glowing eyes and the gargoyles. Star Stable Adventures also makes a good point that the tree symbolizes the dead life wardens, since the Vayla clearly cared about them and became furious at Jon Jarl for destroying them. Oh, and by the way, you know what I find interesting? That one of the statues is in Valedale. If they actually represent the Vayla, is it possible that the name Valedale comes from the Vayla? Just a thought. And I'm also sure that some of you think that this is just a plot they came up with recently, and that it hasn't been part of the story before. You know, a lot of people seem to have that concern after Wildwoods. But you know what? Devil's Gap has always been described as a cursed place, and the Vayla was actually mentioned by Jill during the Fashion Week of 2018, which is 3 years ago now. Come to think of it, Devil's Gap was mentioned a lot during that event, so this actually had more foreshadowing than we realized. In other words, you don't need to worry about this being rushed or retconned in any way, because they've had it planned for a while. But now, moving on to my own discoveries. As a lot of you might remember, I have theorized about Anne's plan with the 5-leaf clover, and one of the points I made was that Mazarin might get introduced somewhere around this point in the story. That's because Anne needs a witch to perform the ritual with the clover. However, with this new information about the Vayla, the theory has branched out to a different possibility. That Anne is heading to Devil's Gap to get help from the Vayla. It makes sense because it's hinted now, following these main story quests. And even if you take Linda picnicking, she will mention how the Vayla is known as the first witches of Jorvik. Witches! You know, exactly what Anne needs for a plan. I have kind of mixed feelings about this because I really want Mazarin in the game, but I don't want her introduced as a Vayla. Why, you ask? Because the Vayla is clearly evil. We've heard time after time how spooky and cursed Devil's Gap is, and the way the Vayla is described so far suggests that these are not good witches. I mean, we've seen the things they can do. I was supposed to save this for Halloween, but it's so relevant that I have to bring it up now. Galloper Thompson was cursed by the Vayla. This happened after an attempt to destroy a runestone, which led to one of his fellow men dying under mysterious circumstances. The others then fled, and Thompson discovered a woman watching from the distance, and this woman gave him immortality as a gift. The same woman could later be found at Devil's Gap, meaning that she was a Vayla. So, the Vayla was not only responsible for Galloper Thompson's curse, but more than likely also the death of the man before him as a way of protecting the runestone. The lengths they would go to protect these stones leads me to believe that they were actually the ones who created them. We have yet to discover what the stones were made for, but given how much time we've spent trying to contain their magic, it doesn't sound very good. And in case you're wondering why I'm calling the Galloper's immortality a curse, it's because it is. After becoming immortal, he was described to have no trace of Idane's light within him, that he was marked as unclean, and that horses would avoid him at all costs. All except a black and dangerous mare that also lacked Idane's light and was deemed unrideable. It sounds an awful lot to me like Galloper Thompson unwillingly became a Dark Rider. But then again, there's no evidence of him working for Garnock or sharing any of Darkhorse's interests. Besides the very questionable scenes we see in his memories, of course. But anyway, Dark Rider or not, whatever it was that the Vayla did to him, it speaks volumes. These are some very powerful witches, and they can do terrible things. So what exactly does all of this mean? Based on the things I've mentioned in this video, I'm starting to realize that there have been signs of the Vayla all along. The Druid statues, the runestones, the fairy rings even, a lot of things that we've always thought was connected to Darkcore is actually the Vayla's work. But for all we know, they could be working together, which is terrifying considering the things they can do. But if there's one thing we can conclude with in this video, it is that the Vayla is indeed evil, and that if Anne gets involved with them, we're gonna be in big trouble. Anyway guys, that's everything I had for this video. I guess a lot of you also wonder if I think Devil's Gap will be open soon, in which my answer is yes, I do think that. I've already made a whole video explaining what Devil's Gap would be next in line, although Star Stable kinda had different plans. But now they're hinting it too, so long story short, yeah, I think it's coming, and it might be coming later this year. So, I'd like to hear your opinions on the Vayla and Devil's Gap and, well, everything else I mentioned in this video, so make sure to leave that down below. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, if you did, I'll see you around. Bye!